Welcome to a homegrown family podcast where we grow the produce and the kids. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a homegrown family podcast. I'm your host, Joe Metler. Today, we're going to have my cousin on board, Justin. How's it going today, Justin?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Fabulous. So, homegrown family podcast, we talk about a couple different things. A lot of the topics lately have been kind of the homegrown component, mostly gardening and stuff. And we also talk about a family component a lot in the previous episodes, where we talk about different family members and things like that, and my grandparents growing up, what kind of farms they grew up on and such. And so that's kind of been the topics of recent. We're going to have a little bit of a combination of the two here with Justin on board today, because in the previous episode, talking about blossom end rot, we had discussed how one of my cousins was curious of why his peppers were having these little black spots on the end called blossom end rot. And so I kind of want to follow up with Justin today on that, but then we'll also kind of move into another topic about how he grew up away from the farm, but also came to visit the farm and what his views of that were like growing up. And so, yeah, let's first talk about blossom end rot. For the listeners who haven't listened to that episode, blossom end rot is generally calcium deficiency. Some may argue that it's inconsistent watering, but in the end, it's the inconsistent watering will result in a reduced uptake of calcium. So it's kind of a two-part sword there, I guess. So ultimately, it's a reduction of calcium uptake or calcium efficiency within the plant. And so Justin here had a setup, and I'll go ahead and let him explain kind of what we decided to do and test out, and we'll see how things are panning out for him.
All right. So when I contacted you about it, right, we ended up discussing how to mix the Epsom salts, put it in a big gallon jug, put it in a spray bottle. And what we decided to do was I have 4 plants that are in my planter. What we decided to do was spray a couple and then water the other 2. So what I ended up doing was spraying the inner plants. So I had one plant that was a jalapeno plant and one plant that was a bell pepper plant. And then they'll spray it, and then same for pouring direct watering, I guess you could call it. It was to the point where every one of them had the end rot on it. So I think it's working. Oddly enough, I think the jalapenos are taken to it better than the peppers. So this is a complete new process to me. I've never really gotten this in depth with any of this stuff, so it's a pretty cool learning curve from you. I'm glad I had you help me with it. So.
You did like a water mixture with Epsom salts in a gallon jug. So you took a cup of Epsom salts you used?
I believe it came down to, for the gallon of water, it was a half cup of Epsom salt.
Okay. And then you mixed it up, dissolved it, put one in a spray bottle, did a foliar application on 2 peppers, and then did basically ground watering with the other 2 peppers.
Correct.
Okay. And doing that should release some calcium into the soil, or potentially have a foliar uptake of calcium into the leaves, was kind of our thought process. And adding to the leaves may have been more of a direct uptake to have a quicker response to influence the peppers potentially, versus uptaking through the roots and then having to travel calcium, through osmosis and things all the way up into the flowers and the plants and stuff and the peppers. And so any of the peppers that you had on the plant that had that blossom end rot, the blossom end rot on that particular pepper won't necessarily disappear because of the addition of the Epsom salts. It'd be any new peppers that had occurred or grew after the fact that hopefully didn't have it after adding these salts and things. With the jalapenos, they're obviously grew a lot more peppers, and so that's why you saw a little bit more of a difference in the jalapenos, maybe.
I've definitely seen a strength and more consistent healthy peppers on both sides. With what you just said, I do think the spraying method is working a lot better than the pour, because my outer bell pepper is struggling more than the other ones. And that was a direct water method. So I think from here on out, from what I've seen, I think I might just end up spraying them all directly and then throwing some groundwater onto it. See if that even speeds up the process even more. Do you agree that'd be a good idea?
I think so, because I think if you're seeing a difference in the from the foliar treatment or application of the solution there, I think that's good, because there could be a lot of potential issues with the soil applied one, being if you're using a lot of high organic matter soil, that calcium and stuff could get, bond with the soil and then they're not be available for the plants either. So depending on your soil medium, that direct spray might actually be a better solution. I just wasn't sure if it would react as well as I was hoping it would.
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge learning process for me too. I got to learn a lot from that, our little experiment that we did. So
yeah, I've never tried the Epsom salts thing. Yeah, it was kind of a curious thing to kind of try, and Justin was curious about it, so I thought maybe we'd try it out, and so that's kind of the results from that, I guess. So yeah, it's always kind of fun when I have individuals, friends of mine, they'll say, hey, what's this situation like? This other day I had a friend of mine text me this picture of this weed, and so I'm a weed scientist by trade, I guess, or a crop agronomist, but ultimately a weed scientist, I guess. And he took me a picture of this weed, and he's like, what weed is this? And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is what it is. Google it real fast. Yep, cocklebur. It was just one of those things that's kind of neat to have that skill, and anytime I go weeding in my garden, I'm just sitting there pulling out, oh, lamb's quarters, kochia, pigweed. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things I got going on when I'm weeding plants in my garden. But anyways, so that was that experiment. So let's go ahead and transition to the family component of this episode today. And so there's about 7 years difference between Justin and I. He's that much older than me. You're not quite the oldest cousin, though, are you? Isn't Rochelle older?
Yeah, that's right. Rochelle's the older one out of all of us.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking you're the oldest, but then I had to think about it a little bit. And so I mentioned in another podcast where I talked a lot about our grandma growing up. I think the episode was called The Good Old Days. And I mentioned John, that'd be his dad. And so John is one of the younger siblings of that family there. And he had possibly the opportunity to farm there if he had wanted to back in the day. Didn't want to farm. Uncle Roger, also part of that family, was not interested in farming at the time after my grandpa had passed. And so ultimately, my grandma moved off the farm with my mom, who was still in school at the time, high school. And so that's kind of what happened with that farm. Currently, we have a family friend of ours that owns it and kind of operates it there. Long story short, I guess, is that John ended up moving to Colorado with Justin and his sister. And so growing up, I guess, John would come and he'd visit, the Minnesotans, right? All the ones who talk funny or whatever. But I still think you got a little bit of it yourself. I don't know.
I'll catch myself with it sometimes. I don't know if I picked it up from my dad, because my dad gets right back into it when he gets up to Minnesota, is visiting his brothers and sisters and everything. So
isn't that crazy how you just pick up the UFTA and all that? Actually, I think I said that the other day, and you're like, wait, did you just say UFTA?
You did.
Yeah. So we had just had a family reunion here at the end of July, and hopefully we'll plan another one here in a couple of years again. And that's oftentimes some of the only times I get to see Justin and his family. But actually, lately they've been coming up about once a year, which has been awesome. Now I just got to visit Louisiana, where they currently are. Any national parks over there?
I mean, we got the swamps. We got all your swamps you want to come down and see. Yeah, that's about it. I know we have the Henderson Swamp. It's not huge. Of course, you got the levee systems. There's a lot of pretty cool culture, especially with the Cajun side of it, and history that is down here.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was in New Orleans for a work conference one time, and I liked the French Quarters. We did like a little tour of like the bayou and stuff too, and it was a lot of fun.
Yep. Swamp tours would be fun. I think you enjoyed swamp tours with all the plant life and everything.
Yeah, we did do one, and they caught a little
pretty cool
crocodile or alligator or whatever, and we brought it on the boat and stuff, and got to see the plantations down there too. Yeah. So actually, kind of going back, I guess, to what we were talking about. So Justin, from time to time with his family, would come up and visit our Uncle Rich's and our Uncle Al's and my dad's and my mom's farm. So he'd always come up and he'd spend his time at these different farms up here in Minnesota. And I want to take some time to talk with Justin about some of his experiences with that, because times in which he was coming up and visiting, I was, 7 or younger, before he started get more involved with sports and things in high school and whatnot. So I know Justin was a cousin that I do recall, even though I was pretty young, I was always excited when they came over, because like Justin was somebody I looked up to, as a kid, as one of my older cousins. Appreciated his time that he had spent with me as a kid. And yeah, I don't know, maybe you have same type of memories, or this is a little younger cousin that was just always kind of on your coattails. I don't know.
No. I remember a lot of things. I remember jumping through the hayloft, up in the barn, going down to the creek, catching tadpoles or whatever we could find down there, pulling leeches off of each other, running around in the living room. There was a lot of stuff. We always had a good time out there. So a lot of great memories out there in Minnesota.
One of the things that when you were visiting up more involved with the farm there, and I guess I'll preface this with my dad was this dairy, I think, most of the time that you were spent there in your childhood years. Because I think I was about 4 or 5, I think, when he finally got rid of the dairy, I believe. And so Justin was always helping out with some of those dairy type chores and things. And so yeah, I guess if you have any memories about the dairy side of things, because I remember falling in the gutter once, and that's about it.
I remember, because I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to be able to stay up there for pretty much a whole summer. We went up as a family to visit, and then it turns out my dad was going to go back to Colorado and then come back up later that year. So I can't remember who brought it up. It was either your dad or maybe I brought it up, and can I stay? Worked out. We ended up staying up till they came back up, and I got to do a lot of cool things. And like you were saying, working on the dairy farm, I always remember tending to the calves, feeding them out of the bottle. I know sometimes I'd have to scrape up the poop, put it in the gutters. I got lucky enough to use a little milking machine. Your dad let me learn a lot and do a lot around the farm, and it was probably one of the best experiences I had growing up was working on the farm and learning all that from him. There's a lot of things, like from milking cows, feeding calves, feeding the cows, cleaning up. That's when I started driving, because your dad allowed me to drive a tractor. I think by that time I was like 14, 15, maybe a year younger or so. So even before I was driving cars, he was letting me drive tractors, rake hay. I remember baling, trapping gophers. Pretty sure we're picking rocks, but that might have been with Rich, picking rocks with our Uncle Rich.
Well, I'm sure you probably had picking rocks too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned tractors and kind of learning there and driving tractors. I know when I kind of started getting into driving tractors, probably around the same age. I might have been just a tish bit younger maybe, but I remember there's one time Dad had the tractor on there with the bale fork, so it's in the front of the tractor, there's basically just 2 big tines on there that are 6 feet long to poke big round bales with and move them around. And he had it sitting, right in front of the shed there. And Dad goes, make sure you lift up those tines before you start going backwards and all this or that. I'm like, okay, yep, I'll get it. I just got to bring it over there. And I got to hook up a wagon. And I get up there and I turn it on. I lift up the fork. And I'm like, all right, good to go. I release the clutch and boom, I move forward. And I just rammed 2 holes straight into Dad's shed.
Oh,
I was like, oh no.
I think you showed me those holes one time, the last time we came out to visit.
So I don't know. Do you have any tractor stories per se that you may have of while working on the farm there?
Oh yeah, I think we were in. Pretty sure it was one of the fields across the road, and he did a lot of square bales too. He had some round bales up, and instead of the front loader, I didn't really get to drive the front loader. I don't think it was always the old Massey, and he had the forks set up in the back, and I would have to back up to the round bales, poke it, and then lift it up. And I remember I was moving away. I think I was just moving to the side or something. I remember I went back up, went to lift the fork, and the whole top side just broke. The eye unit where everything connected broke out, and I was freaking out because I was so worried that I just ruined everything. I, still learning, still young. kind of devastated that I broke his tractor that he's let me ride around on and everything. So I remember doing that. Also, always really enjoyed going out raking because your dad put a lot of trust in me. And I'm super grateful for that. He would let me go out in the fields and just rake the whole field, flip all the hay over so it would dry out on the other side. And he'd take me out there. I'd start raking away, and then I'd be out there on my own, just doing my own thing. The serenity of it, I guess, it's kind of crazy that I would realize that at so young of an age. Driving a tractor, seeing a deer off the edge of the field and everything, it's a really great experience.
Yeah, some of my siblings didn't really get a whole lot of that experience.
Really?
Yeah, because like when David and I were a little older, we did it all.
Oh yeah.
But no, I'm mostly referring to like I think we've all raked hay. I'm pretty sure. But as far as square bales, that was a whole ordeal. Like you're 12, I remember my sister and I and my brother David took 3 of us or 2 of us at least in the back of them wagons, flipping bales end over end because we couldn't lift them up. And we used to do that all the time. And then I think he kind of died down on the amount of square bales he produced. And I don't know if Lawrence, Sam, or maybe Nicholas did now since I think he did bale some last year. But I don't know if Sam or Lawrence ever got in on the square baling.
Oh man, I mean, that was some work. I remember standing up behind the baler, grabbing off the baler and throwing it in the back of the trailer. But
yep.
It was a lot of work, especially if they were a wet bale. Whew.
Oh, that's always the worst when you're turning. So the baler is so you have a tractor, a baler, and then a wagon. For those of you who are not familiar, and it's basically a little tiny chute. So the baler part picks up all the hay, and there's this chute that shoots out this bale that's 2 feet wide by 5 feet long or 6 feet long maybe. Mm-hmm. And on the turns, it always turn out wide, and so if this bale was ready to come out, sometimes it'd shoot off and you'd miss the wagon and you wouldn't be able to grab it. It's like that was the worst thing. Like if you couldn't get the bale and you had to run back and grab this thing and try to catch up or something, it was always a challenge.
Yep. Oh yeah. I think a couple of the times our cousin Matthew and Jason would come help us out too. I don't know if I'm mentioning Rich's place but yeah, I know there'd be a few of us out there bailing. So
usually I'm sure Dad probably got another 1 or 2 people to help out with that, I'm sure. Yeah. You mentioned gopher trapping. That's actually going to be a podcast episode here coming up. I think David and I are going to do one on just that. Because it's kind of an intricate process.
It very, and if you slip up once, those gophers are smart. They put the dirt right under the trap, walk it up, and fill up your trap.
Yep. Yeah. So
fill the hole.
What kind of traps did you use? Because I think at some point we switched over to this style that are, I think they're meant for foxes or things like that, nature, where they step into them with their paw and it catches their paw. But we started using that style for gophers. But you guys probably use like the death grip ones that have like the 2 that basically squeeze them in the middle.
It looks like the old school bear traps you see on TV shows and stuff without the teeth. I'm pretty sure they didn't have the teeth on them.
Yeah, exact same ones that we use then. Okay. And we'll get into that on another episode, and David and I will share some gopher trapping stories. But we had to bike everywhere. Did you have to bike everywhere to check your traps too?
Oh, you know what? I think we got dropped off, and we spent the afternoon or the morning in the field picking up our traps, setting them again, and going through. We used to use the rebar, the little flag on them, stick the rebar into the ground to hold the trap in place, and do that, nice. And walk around, check it, reset them. I think we were getting $1 a tail at the time. I think I let my cousins or your dad obviously hand him the bag of gophers and he would turn them in. I think it was $1 a tail, something like that.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's still $1 a tail. County next door does it for $2.
There you go.
But I think you have to keep the 2 front feet, so you could have almost been turning in double. But
yeah.
What is the most gophers you remember catching in a summer, or while you were there?
I don't know. I know we would have quite a few. we'd walk out with a bag from like a little old feed bag.
Mm-hmm.
Just pop them in the head, throw them in there. But probably can't be any more than 10. I don't know how many. I can't remember how many chaps we had. But we never walked out empty-handed, that's for sure.
There you go. Yeah, those days where you didn't catch anything was kind of a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
But
we had our misses.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Another thing that's always an experience for me is anytime you have to work cattle with Dad. Do you have any experience where you had to take him through the chutes?
I remember chasing him from field to field. If I remember correctly, he had that back hill going up away from the farm. He had that quartered off into like six or eight fields, and he would rotate them through each field for him to graze on. And I remember just chasing him out and everything. I remember going out there one day and finding a newborn calf. I claimed it for my own, but
did you give it a name?
Yeah, but I can't remember the name of it. But I would feed it and do all the things for it for a while. Just because I found out. I don't know. I thought it was mine because I found it, but it was good times.
That's awesome. And my dad just had a cow deliver twins the other day, and it seemed like it delivered them okay. And then the next morning, she had pushed out her uterus and stuff, and it wasn't going to pan out. And so Dad had to make hamburger out of that one. But the calves survived, and so now my dad also milks cow by hand, and I think I've mentioned this previously. And so usually he'll let the milk cow's original calf, of her own calf, kind of take turns between him and the calf actually taking milk from the cow. And well, now this cow's got 3 calves, and so she's adopted the other 2, and so far she's supporting all 3, and Dad still gets like a gallon to himself. So pretty cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they're pretty young calves yet, I guess, but pretty soon they'll probably have to take the older one off or something like that. But
is he still feeding the calves himself at a certain point by bottle or anything like that, or is he still able to
I think these? Yeah, I think this one he ended up letting them. He kind of trained him to drink off the milk cow, and she was letting him do it. So, nice. He probably did a bottle for a little while until they finally took to it. But yeah, not too often do we get bottle cows anymore. I know we had a lot more bottle calves when you train for the dairy, because dairy you basically take the calves away from the moms right away, put them in their little separate pens with the rest of the calves and stuff, and you got to bottle feed these other calves. That's why you have milk replacer and things like that to feed these other dairy calves. But for the beef operation that Dad switched to later on, it's only if something, if the mom's not allowing the calf to drink, or if the mom dies or passes away. So yeah, not too often do we have to worry about bottle feeding anymore.
Okay. I think I do remember having to mix up their bottles. It was like water and dried powder that you pour in there and shake up the bottle for a while and feed it to them.
Yeah, it's just like dehydrated milk, I think, or something like that.
Exactly.
Did you ever drink it? Did you ever taste it?
No. No. I remember taking the milk out of the tank itself, and that was probably the best milk I've ever had in my life. So he always had the cup, so you'd be able to lift up the lid, move the froth to the side, dip the cup in there, and have a little drink. And it was always nice and ice cold. I guess because of the circulation through the piping in the tank, it kept it nice and chilled. It was best milk I've ever had.
Yeah. Any other stories you have about the farm that you recall or you remember? Oh, did Dad have any of the sheep while you were there?
Oh, I don't remember any sheep. I know he had a assortment of like beef cows out in the field across the way. I remember him going out there and doing the artificial insemination. I got to sit down there and help him do that a couple times.
Yeah, I think I want to say he got the sheep after he got rid of the dairy and started working for the post office. And he's like, "Oh, well, I got some time for some sheep now." But that was we had up to like 100 head of sheep, I think, there for a long time.
Yeah, I think I ended up missing out on those. That was the time frame that I was either high school sports or in the military. So
yeah. It's true. Yeah, and yeah, Justin was in the military for what, almost 20 years. Recently retired.
Yeah, just retired a year ago from the Navy.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for your service, and all those who are listening that put in their time over there at the military. Definitely appreciate all they do. So thank you, Justin, for that.
You're welcome.
But so yeah. I guess unless you have anything else, it's kind of a wrap, I guess.
Yeah. There's always one of my favorite spots to go to is the farm. I got to experience a lot of. Obviously, I love going to Rogers, Rich's, Owls. I love going to all of them, but I got a lot of the experience that I've retained from your dad and the farm. It was always a great spot to go to.
Yeah, and you can tell every time you come up and visit, you definitely kind of enjoy sulking in some of those old memories.
Some of the things have changed from way back when I was there, but
What's next after retirement? What's the big foreseeable plans for the future?
well, we came out here to Louisiana. I tried it out. It was a good start for me because in reality we're kind of starting a new life. But I think within the next few years we'll probably end up moving out of here, going somewhere a little cooler with a little bit more seasons. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to start my own little hobby farm. Obviously, it's not as big as your dad's, but I'd like to start a little hobby farm of my own.
Yeah, it's nice this day and age to be able to produce some of your own stuff, whether it's just one cow for meat. I mean, one cow, a beef cow, that's enough to feed your family for a year, Yeah,
it's definitely a lost art with the agricultural side of everything. It's definitely a dying breed. And it's good to get back into touch with those so you can support yourself and your own families. You don't need the cities,
Yeah. I just, after listening to our grandma talking on her thing, walking to school every day, the amount of hours she put in on the farm on a daily basis, I'm just like, people these days, I feel like there's very few that would be able to do it.
Oh, yeah. She had no electricity, no phone.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I've been living in a town here too so far, and I'm definitely itching to kind of get back to doing some of my own things. But I appreciate you all who are listening and kind of hearing some stories of our pasts and of our past family members. We'll be getting into more my current life, how I got to where I am today, and that type of stuff's kind of all up and coming in this podcast. But I definitely enjoyed having Justin on here today to kind of learn a little bit more about his experiences on the farm and everything. And maybe we'll have to have him come back here another episode sometime and talk about some of his military experiences. Maybe it'll be a Veterans Day special or something like that sometime. That'd be kind of fun.
I'd be honored to do it. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Well, stay tuned for some gopher trapping stories coming up soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right.